Hi everybody, it's just Jacob here. We're doing another scoop build, this time for PaleoFrogs. I'm not sure when this will actually be on the scoop phase episode, but eventually it will be. So as you can see here, we're going to start with Totally Awesome. And there's a few new cards that came out that fit very nicely into this deck. So the first thing we want to do when you're building a PaleoFrog deck is obviously you want the frog monsters. I don't think I need to explain 3 Swap Frog, but he's the best monster in the deck. When you normal or special summon him, he just sends a level 2 or lower water aqua monster from your deck to the graveyard, so he helps you get Ronin Totem in the grave, which we'll see in a second. You want to see him as soon as possible, so that's why you're going to play 3 of him. Speaking of Ronin Totem, this is usually what you send to grave. He just banishes a frog to summon himself from the graveyard. And that's not once per turn, so you can keep doing that as long as you have frogs in the graveyard. But that's really all he does. He doesn't really do anything in your hand or on the field, so you really don't want to play more than 2 because you can get access to him so easily with Swap Frog, and he just reuses himself. And then the last frog is Dupe Frog. So he has an effect where your opponent has to attack him if they're attacking a monster. And if you have 2 of them, they just can't attack because they can't attack a Dupe Frog. And also if he's sent to grave, this can miss timing though, so you can't just link him away and get this. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 frog monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand except himself. So he can search Swap Frog. That mainly goes off if you set him and then your opponent attacks over him. So he's just a good you need frogs to banish off of Ronin Totem, and he's honestly the second best frog behind Swap Frog. Another frog you could play is like maybe 1 Flip Flop Frog. He has an interesting effect is when he's flipped face up, you can return monsters your opponent controls to their hand up to the number of face up frog monsters you have. Maybe we'll fit him in here. I don't know if we actually need more than just these because in a second, when we get to it, you'll see there's another source of monsters, even though they're not actually monsters. And then while we're in the frog department, we already added the 2 Totally Awesomes. He's really the heart and soul of this deck. He's what you're trying to make. He negates things, he recycles water monsters, and he gets frogs out of your deck. And he's your boss monster. So you're centering the whole deck basically around using him to win. And that's pretty much it when you search frog on here. The next part of it is the Paleozoic Monsters. They're level 2 aquas, which Totally Awesome takes 2 level 2 aqua monsters, which all the frogs are. But as you could tell, there's not like a whole lot of really good frogs that you can just throw in here and get onto the field easily. But all these Paleozoic monsters, they all have a graveyard effect. When a trap is activated, you can respond with this card in the graveyard to special summon it as a normal level 2 aqua monster, and they are unaffected by monster effects, and they get banished when they leave the field. So they're traps, but they are also our monsters to go along with the frogs. So that has a really nice utility, and some of their effects are but some of their effects are good. Like Olenoides here is just a straight up Mystical Space Typhoon. You target 1 spell and trap on the field, you destroy it. You can even target your own things. Sometimes that comes up if you need to trigger your own Paleozoic monsters in the graveyard. It's not often, but sometimes it does come up. So he's the most consistent one we can just activate pretty much whenever we want. So we want to play him at 3, and it's just good to have spell and trap removal. The next one we're going to play 3 Paleozoic Dinomischus. So he has the effect where you target a face-up card on the field, then you discard a card. You target a face-up card on the field, and then you discard a card, and if you do, banish it. So the targeting is cost, the discard isn't. This is a really nice removal. You can banish face-up spells and traps. You can banish face-up monsters. And banishing is just a really good form of removal. The discard's a little costly sometimes, but it's worth what you get out of them. Next we have Paleozoic Marella. When you activate him, he sends a trap card from your deck to the graveyard. He's okay. He's pretty free to activate if you need to summon Paleozoics from your graveyard. And he can get Paleozoics in your graveyard. The problem with this one is it doesn't really do anything to your opponent, so depends on if you want to play this. Right now, I don't think I'm going to, but I'm going to put them down here in consideration. And then the last, like, really good, solid Paleozoic. If you ever see a Paleozoic frog deck, you always see Olenoides, Deinonychus, and Canadia. Sometimes they're not all at 3, but you usually see all 3 of them. And what Canadia does is he targets a face-up monster your opponent controls. Keep that in mind. It has to be your opponent, so you can't flip your own thing down to try and summon your Paleozoics from the grave. And you flip that monster face down. So we're going to play him at 3. Because when you flip something face down, they can't link summon with it, they can't synchro summon with it, they can't XC summon with it. It's just very helpful sometimes. And that's it for the Paleozoic traps. There are Paleozoic monsters in the extra deck. So we have Paleozoic Opabinya. He takes 2 level 2 monsters, and like the trap monsters when they're on the field, he is unaffected by monster effects. And then he has a continuous effect where you can activate Paleozoic trap cards from your hand, which that's very helpful, especially when you see his next effect. If he has a trap card as his XYZ material, so if there's a Paleozoic under him, you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card, then you can add 1 Paleozoic trap card from your deck to your hand. And then that's a once per turn. So what you can do is you can detach, say you detach the trap card that's under him, and then you search Deinonychus. Then you use Deinonychus right from your hand immediately because he's on field to banish a monster your opponent controls, and then you can chain your Paleozoic trap as long as your opponent doesn't have a response. You can chain your Paleozoic trap you just detached and bring it back onto the field, and you have another free monster. So Opabinya is really nice. It helps you get what you need. The unaffected by monster effects is actually sometimes relevant. He has no attack, but he's got 2400 defense, so sometimes he's hard to get rid of. I'm going to play one of him. It's a good, nice utility card. The other Paleozoic, which just has different little shadings on here, it's the same card though, is Paleozoic Anomalakaris. I don't know if I said that right. He takes 3 level 2 monsters. He also is unaffected by other monster effects. That includes your own. Keep that in mind later. So when once per turn, if a trap card is sent from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, you can excavate the top card of your deck, and if it's a trap, you add it to your hand. Otherwise, you send it to the graveyard. So that's kind of nice. You use a trap, and then you can immediately almost get some advantage back off of that. And then his other effect is once per turn during either player's turn, if he has a trap card under him as XYZ material, you can detach 1 material and then target 1 card in the field and destroy it. I personally like this card. We are going to put him into consideration, though, because just through initial looking at this deck, the extra deck might get a little tight. We'll see. But I really like this card. It's a little costly to use 3 level 2 monsters, but we're going to keep him in consideration down below there in the side deck for now. So that's it with the Paleo monsters, or Paleo traps and monsters, I guess. So this is pretty much our core. This is the core of the PaleoFrog strategy. There's not a lot of cards here, to be honest. But what you do want to do is the way that the Paleozoic traps are worded is they have to respond directly to a trap being activated. So if you activate a counter trap, neither player can chain something to a counter trap other than a counter trap. So you can't chain your Paleozoics to that. So traditionally you want to play a lot of normal or continuous traps because you can chain your own Paleos engraved to those traps. So in thinking in that, we're going to get the counter traps out of the way first, because we do actually have to play some. And they mainly start with the word solemn in their name, and that would be Solemn Judgment. We are a back row focused deck. We can't handle if we get red rebooted or lightning stormed or Harpy's feather dustered. That won't go well for us, so we're playing 3 of this no matter what. I also like to play at least 2 Solemn Strike. I think it's a pretty decent card. Unlike Judgment, you can kind of sometimes get away with setting this going second. Not often, but sometimes it comes up. So I'm going to put 2 of them down there, 3rd one in the side deck if we end up having more room. And then Solemn Warning, I don't think's worth it, to be honest. I think you're better off just playing Judgment or Strike. So that's it for the counter traps. We're playing no more counter traps. Now, one thing, I'm still afraid of Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm, despite there being 3 Solemn Judgment here. So there is a card called Dark Sacrifice. It is a normal trap, so you can chain your Paleozoics to it. It says, when your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a card or cards on the field, you can negate that effect, Then you send one level 3 or lower dark monster from your deck to the graveyard. Well, just looking at this, we have no dark monsters, so why would we play this? Well, I'll show you in a second. I'm going to play 2 of these. The reason I'm playing 2, and the reason you're going to see me play 2 of a lot of other normal trap cards, where there's going to be a trap card later on that's going to make that make a little more sense. But to make this card make more sense, we are going to look up Backjack. So this guy right here, he is a level 1 Fiend Dark. So he's dark, and he's level 1, so you can send him with Dark Sacrifice. Well, why would you want to send this thing? Well, during either player's turn, you can banish him from your graveyard, you excavate the top card of your deck. If it's a normal trap, you set it on your field, and if it's not, it goes to your graveyard. That's cool. The best part, though, is if this card is sent to the graveyard, so whether it's from deck, or hand, or field, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and you rearrange them in any order you want. So the odds are there is probably going to be a normal trap somewhere in those top 3. You put it on the top, and then immediately you can, if it's your opponent's turn, let's say that you got to use Dark Sacrifice, you can banish Backjack, set that trap, and you can use that trap the turn you set it if you set it off of his effect. So you get immediate value. So if you have this set and they try and Lightning Storm you, you not only will negate that, you will get a free trap to replace this card most likely. So we're going to play 2 of him. Also, him being level 1 is important, so we can normal summon him if our hand's not that great, and make Link Kribo, and reset the top. And also, he's a pretty good discard father for Dinomischus. So anyways, that's Dark Sacrifice, and Backjack to go with it. The next thing I want to look at is a new card that just came out in Phantom Rage that I think's pretty good for this deck. It is called Warning Point. It is a normal trap, so we can chain our Paleozoics to it, and it says when a monster or monsters, so if they pendulum summon or something, is summoned, not just special summoned, is summoned this turn, that face-up monsters or monster cannot attack, its effects are negated, and also it cannot be used as material for a fusion, synchro, Xe, or link summon. So it's just sitting there. And this is a normal trap, so I figure Phantom Rage just came out. Let's give this a try. Once again, we're going to put 2 here. Let's just go ahead and show you why. This might be the strongest trap in this deck. It's a Trap Trick. What's so strong about Trap Trick is it lets you get any normal trap you want. You banish it from your deck, and then you set that card, another copy of that card from your deck, onto your field. Then you can activate it this turn, but you can only activate 1 more trap for the rest of the turn after you resolve this. So what you can do is you can get Olanoides, Dinomischus, Warning Point, Dark Sacrifice, Canadia, any other normal trap we throw in here. This is almost like having 3 copies of all those normal traps, and in some cases 4 copies, because we play 3 of the Paleozoics. It's also really good in this deck, because you activate it, that can trigger a Paleozoic, summon itself. You can activate the trap you just set off of it, that can summon a Paleozoic. All of a sudden you have 2 level 2 Aquas on your field, and that can make totally awesome. So this card is just very good in this deck, so I'm going to play 3 of it. And next is another fairly new normal trap, not quite Phantom Rage new, but I believe it has Prison in its name. Sometimes I get this wrong. There it is, Ice Dragon's Prison. So this normal trap card says, target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field, but its effects are negated. Then you can banish 1 monster from both players' fields that have the same type as each other, and you can only activate 1 of these per turn. So this card helps you get rid of monsters on your opponent's field by using stuff in their graveyard. And sometimes that's doubly good, because sometimes that thing in the graveyard might be helpful. So for example, say you're facing Dinosaur. Just let's pretend it's like Battle Phase or something, and the Miscellaneous isn't protecting the Dinosaur on field. You could summon, let's say, a Miscellaneous from their graveyard, banish it, and banish a Dinosaur on their field. That might not be the best example, but you can see where this is going. So we're going to play 2 of this because, like I said, we can kind of get it whenever we want thanks to Trap Trick. And it's also a normal trap, so our Paleozoics can summon themselves off of it. Next, I want to add a few hand traps in here because, as you can see, we don't have really anything for going second. So, first off, I'm going to put 3 infinite impermanences, because Why not? It's a normal trap. You can get it off of Trap Trick. It will trigger your Paleozoics, and if you're going second, you can use it on your opponent's turn as long as you have no cards. So I don't see why you wouldn't play 3 of this card in here. Just to add a few more hand traps here, I'm going to add a few Ash Blossom just because I don't think we're going to have enough space for like Psyframe Gamma or something. And I feel like this is pretty generic. We're not going to be able to fit a lot of going second cards in here, unfortunately. That's mainly what side decks are for. This deck wants to go first, as you can see from all the traps. And so we're at 38 cards already. So there's a few things we can put in here. I'm going to put them in the consideration before I make my decision. We could put some more like hand trap things. We could put Nibiru. That's like a nice little 2-of we could maybe throw in there. Or like Ghost Ogre maybe. Another card I like is I don't know if a lot of people know this. There's this card that came out in I believe it was Rise of the Duelist. It's called Fury of Kyuretion. You can add 1 Torrential Tribute from your deck to your hand, so I guess that's pretty decent. And then if a water monster or monsters you control be destroyed by card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. And what it gets is, if you don't know, it's a pretty popular trap, is Torrential Tribute. When a monster is summoned, you destroy all monsters on the field. And you can actually banish this to protect your water monsters from being destroyed by this. So I'm going to put this in here. We might try and fit it. I really like this. I don't know if it's actually worth it. I don't know how good Torrential Tribute is right now. Especially since if you search it with this, they know it's there. So it kind of loses a lot of its value in the fact that they know it's coming. So they can try and play around it if they can. Another thing I like is I think Gozen Match is alright right now. There's not a lot of floodgates this deck can play effectively, but I think Gozen Match is one that you could play because you're mainly just summoning water monsters. And a lot of the top decks right now, I think Gozen Match is okay against. It might not be a surefire way to stop them, but it could be helpful. And sometimes decks like this really needed some kind of like stun card like this to try and slow down a lot of the combo decks. So we're going to take out the Dark Sacrifice. We're going to put 2 Gozen Matches down here for consideration. Other things you could do, we could just throw the 3rd Strike in. We could throw more monsters in. Like, you could even throw, like, a few kaijus in here. Gamma Seal's a water and an aqua, so totally awesome. Contribute him and add him back, which is nice, I guess. And you can discard him off Swap Frog. Because, as you can see, this deck can't really deal with Dragoon that well. I don't know if it's worth main decking the kaijus, to be honest with you. Another thing you could play Dark Ruler, I guess. I don't think you'd be breaking any boards, though. You could play, like, Pancratops. You could even, if you wanted to, throw Dragoon in here, just, like, 3 Red Eyes Fusion and a Red Eyes and a Dark Magician. That's a way you could probably go. Personally, I think I'm just going to go Gozen Match, though. I think that's probably the safer bet. On YGO Pro, might not work out well. We might face really random stuff that this is completely worthless against, but we'll go with it for now. I might change my mind by the end of this and do the Torrential Tribute thing just because I like it. So that's it for the main deck, I think. I don't really want to go above 40. You could play like Paw Desires or Extravagance, but I think you're risking it with Extravagance. I could see Desires more. So now we just gotta figure out the extra deck. And speaking of new cards, we added Warning Point. And I made this because I wanted to throw some new cards, and it's not just Warning Point. Let me see if I can spell his name right. There he is. Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS, Sky Thunder. So he takes 2 level 12s. We're not going to do that. Once per turn, if an XYZ monster battled this turn, you can also XYZ summon him by using 1 XYZ monster you control as material, and then you transfer its materials to this card. Then quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from him, send all other cards on the field to the graveyard, and then once per turn, if another card or cards I control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, I can attach 1 card from my hand, deck, or extra deck to him as material. So I'm gonna get to a rank 2 in a second that helps make this easier, but honestly, just Toad attack something, and then you can rank the Toad up if you really want to into this guy. And a funny thing, when I was testing this a little earlier, the Paleozoics are unaffected by monster effects. So one game I attacked with, we'll get to him in a second, a different XYZ monster, ranked it up into him, then made Opabinya, and then sent everything on the field. But since Opabinyan's unaffected by other monster effects, not just your opponents, he didn't get sent. It'd be the same way for these guys when they come back. So that's a nice little thing that's can be easy to forget, but might come up. So speaking of how we get to Zeus, the best way is this guy. Sky Calvary Centurarira, I don't know how you say it. 2 level 2 monsters. He can't be destroyed by battle while he has an XYZ material. So you can crash him into anything, he will not die, and that will activate the requirements you need to go into Zeus. His other effect is at the end of the damage step, if he battled a monster, you can detach one material from this card and then return that monster to the hand. So it doesn't target, so this is one of our few ways to get rid of Dragoon, assuming they haven't used a negate on it yet. And it also is probably our most easy way to trigger off what we need to get Zeus on the field. So we're definitely playing him. I was looking at a few other things. You could do Cat Shark. I'll show you him. Cat Shark also can't be destroyed by battle as long as it has a water monster underneath it, but I think this is probably just better. I think that's it for the rank 2s for now. We might think of some more as I go along. One thing I do want to put in here is Link Karibo, because I think it's very helpful for Backjack. If you open Backjack and that's really the only monster you have, you can normal summon him and make Link Karibo, and there you go. You get his effect off, and you have a little bit of battle protection with Link Karibo. After that, I'm just gonna throw in whatever links you want, really, because the way Ronin Totem works, he's actually very good for link summoning. So once this deck kind of starts snowballing into a bunch of frogs, you can pretty much make whatever you want. So we're gonna put Unicorn, Phoenix, and why not? We'll put Cerberus in here. I'm gonna put Link Spider just because these Paleozoics, they are normal monsters, and as we get to more of the bigger Link monsters, you're gonna see they take effect monsters. So sometimes you just want to turn one of the Paleozoics into an effect monster. So that's why we're gonna throw Link Spider in here. Let's go ahead and put Access Code Talker in here. Why not? We could very easily go up into Phoenix into Access Code Talker. And then him plus like a Toad seems pretty good to me. I'm going to put Appaloosa in here. Why not? We can make her pretty easily. Another thing is there is a Marine Cess card. Where is she? Here she is. Coral Anemone. So she takes 2 water monsters. And her effect is you can target 1 water monster with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Special summon it to a zone this card points to. And then for the rest of the turn, you can't summon monsters except water, which, if we're trying to make Toad, that's not a big deal. And as you can see, Swap Frog has less than 15, Ronin has less than 15, and Dupe has less than 15. So this is very helpful, I think. Another thing we could play is Bubble Reef. She's fairly generic Link 4, just takes 2+ water monsters. And then once per turn during each standby phase, you can banish a water monster from your graveyard or field to draw a card. And then she gains attack each time a monster is banished faced up. And then she has another effect to summon a Marine Cess from the banish zone, but that wouldn't come up here. It's a good way to draw cards. I don't know if she's worth it over some other Link 4s, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then another thing is I think Area, the Water Charmer, is pretty good. 2 monsters, including a water monster. If she gets destroyed, she basically gets to search you Swap Frog. So it's almost like she's a dupe frog you can summon out of the extra deck if you really need to get the Swap Frog. So we're at 14. We got 1 spot left. I think we're fine on the little Link monsters, except we could play IP. That's something. I'm just gonna forget the Bubble Reef. We don't need the Bubble Reef, and the Nibiru's just and the Frog. Get him out of here. Another thing we could play is any of the Borals. This gives us another way to get through a Dragoon, potentially. And this gives us just a way to attack over things. And then, I mean, you can throw Avramax in here if you really wanted to. You can pretty much throw whatever you want. I'm going to put IP, just because I think that's a pretty solid Link 2 you could make. You could, if you can end on like IP Toad by some miracle. I don't know if it's actually possible or not. You'd have to have a really weird hand. But you could go like Toad, IP, Toad summon a frog, then you make a unicorn on your opponent's turn or something like that. So we're just gonna throw her in there. The extra deck really doesn't matter too much, except for these XYZ monsters. The Link monsters are just kind of bonuses at this point. So that's pretty much it. I mean, we got the extra deck. You saw what other things we could put in here. Just gonna take them all out. Not gonna do the Torrential Tribute. You are welcome to do the Torrential Tribute thing, though. I think that's actually a very interesting card to play. You could put Pot of Desires in here. Pot of Extravagance, that new pot card, the Pot of whatever it's called, the new pot card that's like Extravagance. You could put that in here too. But yeah, that's it. For side deck, I would suggest pretty much just go second cards like. I mean, maybe Dark Ruler, Pankratops, evenly matched. You could even play Raw Sphere mode in this deck because, as you can see, we don't have a lot of monsters. So we might not, even if we draw the Sphere mode, losing our normal summon might not matter because we just might not have a monster to summon anyways. You could play Gamma for very similar reasons. Even if you go first, you're probably not going to have a monster on field most of these hands. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. This has been going a while, I think, so I don't know if I don't really want to do a test game with this. I think you guys will see it for yourself. Plus, if I did a test game, it could take a while. I might go really quick, I don't know, but it could take a while. So I hope you all enjoyed this building process. It will be in a Scoop Phase episode at some point. We'll see. Might be the next one, might be the one after that. Just depends. So I will see everyone next time. I hope you enjoy. And I am scooping now. Goodbye.